At my wedding reception, my mom suddenly stood up and announced, "I have a surprise. Your dress was bought with my credit card, so you owe me." Everyone laughed, until she showed a bill and threatened, "Pay me now, or I'll have the DJ stop the music." Then my dad's best friend stood up and said, "Actually, that's not how this works." What he said next made my mom scream. I had expected some trouble at my wedding, especially from my mom, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. We were in the middle of the celebration, the dance floor was busy, the dinner was over, and my husband and I were still happy to be married. Guests were laughing, drinks were flowing, and everything felt perfect. Then my mom got up. She tapped her champagne glass with a spoon and smiled, like she was about to give a sweet toast. The music got quieter, and everyone turned to listen to her. Instead, she said, "I have a surprise." My husband tensed up next to me. I tried to speak, but before I could, another voice interrupted. "Actually, that's not how this works." It was my dad's best friend, Alan. Alan was a quiet lawyer who had known our family for years, but my mom really didn't like him. He never let her misbehave get away with it. He stood up, fixed his tie, and said calmly, "You want her to pay you back for the dress? Let's talk about that." My mom scoffed, "There's nothing to talk about. I paid for it. She owes me." Alan looked at her like she was a spoiled child. "Interesting, because I have some information that changes everything." Then, in front of everyone, he revealed something that made my mom scream. Alan reached into his jacket and took out a stack of papers, not just one piece, but many documents. He flipped through them slowly and then looked straight at my mom and said, "Let's talk about this credit card of yours." My mom crossed her arms. "There's nothing to talk about." Alan smiled slightly. "Oh, there's plenty to talk about, because, funny thing, this credit card you used for the dress." He held up one of the papers. "It wasn't really yours to use." A few people gasped. My mom's face tensed. "What are you talking about?" Alan stepped closer and said calmly, "The card you used is in your ex-husband's name, my best friend's name." He turned to my dad, who had been watching silently with his arms folded. "You never closed that account, did you?" My dad shook his head. "No." Alan continued, "This means, legally, this wasn't your money to spend." My mom's face went pale. She tried to speak but could not say anything. Alan went on, "So let's go over this. You took a credit card that belonged to your ex-husband, used it to buy the dress, and now you're demanding payment?" He chuckled. "That is not just wrong, it's fraud." A heavy silence filled the room, and someone near the bar whistled softly. My mom looked around for help, but Alan wasn't done. He pulled out another paper and said, "I checked into your credit history too. It turns out you have been using that same card for much more than just this dress." My mom stepped back. "You had no right." Alan interrupted, "The total comes to over $155,000. The room exploded with gasps and whispers. My mom screamed, "You had no right to look into my personal business." She continued yelling about violations, but Alan only said, "Fraud, that's the word." I looked at my dad, who was still shocked, then smiled and said, "I was going to let you keep digging your own grave, but now I'm pressing charges." My mom's eyes widened. "You wouldn't dare." My dad smiled, "Watch me." Then my mom lost control. She started screaming at Alan, at my dad, at me, and even at my husband, but no one listened. The DJ, looking uncomfortable, asked me, "Should I keep playing?" I took a deep breath and said, "Turn it up." The music became loud, drowning out my mom's angry voice. She stormed out, still yelling, and no one followed her. I looked at my husband. He squeezed my hand and grinned. "I guess we're off to an interesting start." I laughed. "Oh, you have no idea." I danced the rest of the night, feeling like I had finally taken away my mom's power over me. Even though the music was loud, I could still hear her muffled screams outside. She was furious. But for the first time, she did not control anything. Or so I thought. About 10 minutes after things got normal again, one of the catering staff hurried up to me, looking scared. "Ma'am," she whispered and glanced toward the door, "there's a problem outside." I frowned. "What kind of problem?" She leaned closer and said, "Your mom is calling the police." I felt my stomach drop. I turned to my husband and asked, "My dad and Alan, are you serious?" Alan's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Calling the cops on herself?" he said. The staff member nearby shook her head and added, "She's saying you all stole from her." I felt a surge of anger. My dad rolled his eyes and said, "Fine, let's go sort this out." We stepped outside and there she was, standing on the sidewalk with her phone in hand, yelling like she'd lost her mind. A few guests had come out to see what was happening, and someone murmured, "She's really doing this." Then we saw blue and red lights flashing by as a police car pulled up. 2 officers got out and began looking around. My mother hurried over to them.
All right, go ahead
"Officers,
and knock
thank
that
God
in.
you're here. I
Or
need to report a
take
crime."
a few shots at it.
One of the officers, a tired-looking middle-aged man, sighed and said, "All right, ma'am, what's the problem?" Pointing at my dad
No
and his
pressure at
friend,
all.
she
I'm just-
declared, "My ex-husband has been stealing from me for years." Alan couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, this is rich," he commented. Then she pointed at me and shouted, "My ungrateful daughter is refusing to pay me for the wedding dress I bought with my own money." The officer blinked. "Wait, you're calling us about a wedding dress?" Before she could explain more, Alan stepped forward. "Officers, let me make this simple." He handed over the papers he'd shown earlier. "My mother used a credit card that wasn't really hers to buy that dress. In fact, there are over $115,000 in other charges on that card. This isn't a theft case, it's fraud." The officers read the documents, and as they took in the facts, their demeanor changed. One of the younger officers looked at my mom and asked, "Ma'am, is this true?" My mother's eyes darted around nervously. I didn't steal anything. That card has my name on it," she stammered. Alan nodded. "Yes, it has your name, but the account isn't in your name." The officer then turned to my dad. "Sir, do you want to press charges?" Without hesitating, my dad replied, "Yes." My mother's face went white. "What? No, no, this isn't fair. He's my ex-husband. I was entitled to that money." The younger officer sighed. "Ma'am, that's not how it works." My mother started shaking with anger. "This is all your fault," she screamed at me. "I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me?" I folded my arms and said calmly, "You tried to blackmail me at my wedding." She lunged toward me, but the older officer stepped between us. "Ma'am, I think it's time for you to leave," he said. Even as she let out a piercing scream, she realized she couldn't win this argument. Turning to my dad, she hissed, "You'll regret this." My dad just smirked and said, "I'm pretty sure I won't." Then, she stormed off into the night. You would think that would be the end of it, right? That she would simply accept defeat. But a few days later, my dad received a call from his bank. It turned out that my mother had been opening credit cards in his name for years of fraud. Alan, who happens to be an excellent lawyer, helped my dad review all the details. They discovered that she had racked up over $40,000 in fake charges, spending money on luxury vacations, designer clothes, and expensive restaurants, all in my dad's name. She had been living off his credit for almost a decade, and now she was about to face the consequences. We filed major charges for identity theft, fraud, and unauthorized credit card use, and the best part? She never saw it coming. A few weeks later, while she was at a fancy boutique trying to buy another expensive handbag, the police showed up again and arrested her on the spot. At her trial, she cried, blamed everyone else, and claimed she was the real victim, but the judge wasn't fooled. In the end, she was convicted and forced to pay back every single dollar. With that, her fancy lifestyle and reputation were gone, and she lost all the power she once held over me. That all happened 2 years ago. She still tries to contact me sometimes, but I ignore her. She even tried to get other family members to feel guilty about what happened, but no one wants to be around her anymore. As for my dad, he's finally free, traveling, fishing, and enjoying life without her constant shadow. Alan still jokes about it, saying it was one of his easiest cases. As for me, my husband and I recently bought our first home, and I have peace at last. My mother, last I heard, is living in a tiny apartment, working a low-paying job, and still blaming the world for everything. But I've moved on. For the first time ever, I feel truly free, and that's the best revenge of all. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more great stories. Don't forget to tap the notification bell, so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments, we love hearing from you. See you next time, and take care.